Doomba is a cleaning simulator adventure game made in Unreal Engine by students from Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. When you first load it up, it prompts you to use a controller, so I followed instructions and plugged one in. The credits pop up for about 5 seconds, but flicking them on and off showed the game was made by 3 people, and used a mix of programs on top of Unreal Engine, including Adobe Creative Suite, Autodesk Maya, Mixamo.com, Perforce, Pixlogic ZBrush, Side Effects Houdini, Substance Designer, and Xnormal. It's got a brushed art style on the menu, and chill music. The game premise is that you're a sentient roomba on a space station overseen by an AI called Psy, which has been invaded by aliens. And by aliens, I mean alien, singular, but I'll get onto that later. Your responsibility is to clean the ship of dirt and the fungal infection that came with the alien, and has infected some of the other Doombas. I thought Doomba was your name specifically, but it turns out all space Roombas are called Doombas in this game. The overall format of the game is you go to a room and clean it, and then move on. Things get dirtier as you go along. You have a limited water storage meter which you can refill at stations around the place, and you get a couple of upgrades, one being a squeegee to clean walls, and another to increase the size of your water store. It's a pretty simple premise, easy to pick up, and whilst it says you can play with controller best, it makes not much difference to play with mouse and keyboard. I'll start with the visuals of the game because there's clearly a lot of effort there. The environment takes a second to kick in at the start, but the textures are good on the walls and floor, and on your model itself. Cutscenes are decent, the background out the ship is good, and it's a realistic environment with metal elevators and sliding doors, holograms, and everything is appropriately sized against your floor-level character. The fungus is good and there are spore effects in the air, and the alien invader is also suitably infested. I would hazard that most of this has personal touches mixed in with some Unreal assets, and it's good to sell the environment of the story. The voice acting is robotic since both characters are machines, and most of the dialogue has Psy throwing shade at you for being bad, until eventually your deep-voiced module starts lobbing mechanised profanity at her. Psy is mostly not visible, though sometimes hangs down from the roof on a stick like GLaDOS. I'm not sure if it's voice acted and then overlaid with robot themes, or if it's done by an AI voice, or Google Translate voice. It's not disclaimed anywhere. Either way, the voice for Psy kind of sounds like Jenna Ortega's Wednesday. I've no faults for the voice acting really. Obviously the tonation is a bit off, but that's because it's robots, and it fits the theme well enough. The sound design is pretty meh in my opinion. You get decent sound effects for the rolling of the Doomba. There's no noise when sucking up dirt, though you get a loud squeaky noise when cleaning windows, or even if you're not in contact with the window and have just wiped it. The sound effect sometimes doesn't stop playing even if you're not in contact with the window anymore. The doors make suitable noises, though on my first run of 2 I was getting monster noises about the point I got to the airlock section. Here you find an infected Doomba and have to launch it into space to clean where it was, and I thought the growling was from that. But then I launched it and the noise continued. Yet on run number 2, I didn't get that monster noise, so I don't know if that was actually meant to trigger at that point in time. The other thing is that when you start getting fungus and there are mushrooms on the walls, you get popping noises when you clean them off, and when you run over the ones on the floor. It just seems a bit cartoony, and doesn't really fit all that well. Some kind of scraping noise might have been a bit better. The mushrooms just disappear instead of falling off or anything as well. The music in the game is chill for ages, just a casual track. Then at some point, about halfway through cleaning the last corridor, it changes to a more tense rock track. This change is a little jarring because you haven't really seen any threat yet. The alien you come across isn't visible at this point, so it's building tension against something unknown, and you usually still have to finish cleaning the last bits of the corridor, so it kind of feels like vacuuming your carpet to the soundtrack of Doom.
Then you're going to turn it on, this is going to be loud, and you're going to do a back and forth motion on your carpet.
This leads in a bit to the animation as well. There's not a ton outside of the cutscenes, which are perfectly fine, but the squeegee just moves up and down, so no issues there. Your Doomba has a beacon on top, which again just moves up and down and is also fine. Movement animation for the elevator, airlock on your character is good, but the alien you find standing around kind of bobbles and sways like a bored kid waiting in the lunch queue. I guess they're going for a zombie-like movement, but it's almost too fluid to be in any way intimidating. It's not erratic and jerky, it's just a kind of casual sway. Its swing animation is fine, but when you have to lower it across the floor, it levitates without moving its legs, like a ghost. It does break the realism a bit that it has no walk animation. Now on to the mechanics. Well, other than cleaning and pushing a couple of buttons, there aren't many. The cleaning is obviously the main part, and balancing your amount of water versus what to clean is about the only challenge you have. But there's a fill station in every room, so you don't have to go back far, and you actually don't even have to clean every bit of the dirt patches on the floor for it to disappear. In a couple of places, all I had to do was put 2 stripes in the middle of a pile of dirt, and that was it. It would vanish. Given that it's meant to be one of the main parts of the game, it's very easy, and you kind of undercut your length of playtime by only making people clean 60 to 70% of a patch of dirt before it vanishes. I mean, sure, you don't want to make them get every pixel because that would be frustrating, but I think you could make people put a bit more effort in. You do have to run over the tougher patches a couple of times later on, but again, it's not all that pressing. The only other play sequence really is leading the alien to the airlock to eject it. You hold up the port that you use to refill to lure the alien and you get it to follow. I had to re-record this bit because watching it back changed my mind about what I thought happened the first time. So my first run through, when I got it to follow me, I got a bit too close to it and it hit me twice. I had water in my port, but every time the alien hits you, it takes away a chunk of that water. However, when I got to 0, the alien continued to follow me, until I got a little bit too far away from it, in which case it stopped, and then when I went to go back and hold up my beacon to get it to follow me, when I had no water, it wouldn't follow. So, I went and refilled, then went back to the alien, held up my little recharging port again, and then it did follow me. The second time I did this, a similar thing happened. I held up the recharger, it followed me across. It hit me a couple of times, so I ran out of water. It did carry on following me, again like the first time, but then, when I put my sprinkler down, it still continued to follow me. It latched onto me so hard that when I led it into the airlock, it didn't stay in there when I shut the door, and it clipped out through the door. In order to test the game, I decided to press the eject button to see if it would register that the alien had clipped out of the door. It did register, so it didn't end the game as it would have done if the alien was in there. But this time, when I moved again, the alien wouldn't follow me, it just stopped outside the doors. I went to get more water so I could lead it back into the airlock, but this time, when I held up my port with water in my storage, it didn't follow me at all. It completely stopped responding to me when I tried to lead it anywhere. This was when I learned that you can shove the alien. Sometimes when you shove it, you will slide under it. Sometimes it will move a bit. Sometimes it will launch across the room. The best effective shove is to drive into it and then lift your squeegee into it, which is what I had to do to get it back in so I could eject it, because as said, it wouldn't follow me. My question of these mechanics is this. If the impact of the alien hitting you is to get rid of water, why does it still carry on following you when you run out of water? I'm also assuming it wasn't meant to follow me still when I put my charger back down, so I have no idea why it latched onto me that hard as well. But this bit was a little bit confusing, and I'm assuming that it is supposed to only follow you when you have water, but not when you don't. You will notice as well from this that the camera bumps off objects. This can be a common problem in Unreal, but it's designed open enough that you don't really see much issue from this. You might get a push off some walls and a close-up look at yourself, but unless the alien gets on top of you, it's not too bad. The other thing with the clipping is that I managed to half clip myself into a wall at some point. I have no idea how. It only happened once and quickly after I got bumped out, but I also managed to shove another Doomba in one of the first rooms out of the wall of the map. Should any of this be possible? I don't know. The game's not unstable per se, but a few little bits and pieces make it feel shaky. I also accidentally activated 2 voice prompts at once, which overlaid as well, and there are a couple of typos to be found, but none of those are critical. My main question of this game is, what is the tone it was going for? It's got a comedy theme from the start with a fake Star Wars intro, the constant one-sided banter from Psy, and the kind of cartoony alien and your swearing Doomba, but it makes some attempts to try and be serious. The design is so realistic, and the change of music pace when you get near the alien tries to build some tension. Psy warns you to be careful, but as can be seen from my relentless shoving and mucking around, there is zero threat from anything here. So this attempt at a tense environment really doesn't pay off. It's a juxtaposition that really doesn't blend too well. If you were going to commit to the tension, you'd want to focus on the realism, make your monster a bit scarier, and take out the comedy dialogue in favour of something a bit more urgent and critical. You'd want to maybe add some consequence, such as death if you get hit by the alien, or maybe some humans to save by leading it away. But if you want comedy, you don't really need the alien, and you don't need to try for the tense music or the ultra-realistic visuals. You could make it a bit more cartoony, add a bit more fun and funky to the environment, add a bit more back and forth between Psy and Doomba. It just feels like it can't make all that much of an impact because it changes its mind about what it wants to do halfway through. Overall, it's a passable game in my opinion. The visuals are great, I like the concept as an idea, but it's almost like they had to rush to get it finished and cut some corners. The theme is mostly met, but some of the sound effects and music don't support as well as they could. The game's a little shaky with some clipping, and the cleaning mechanic isn't fully followed through, making the game very short at 20 minutes. You won't die if you play it, you get some brief chance to clean some stuff if you like that, but I wouldn't say you'll miss out on much if you give it a pass. For that, I will give Doomba a 4.5 out of 10.